Okay, another big week. Just some further review on the game. Really pleased with the effort and the resolve of the team. I think a lot of it had to do with things we talked about, team chemistry and believing in one another, because we certainly were on the ropes. Whenever you play somebody that's that talented, and the tape bared out what I thought. I think Texas Tech is a good football team. And, if we played them 10 times, I don't know how many times we beat them, but on that night we did. And some, ebbs and flows within the game that were certainly exciting. Some of them were certainly not something that I would ever have dreamt. But nonetheless, it was a great win for our program on national TV against in the coaches poll. Anyhow, I know they're rated 24th. So we got to move on, and what's going to be important for us is to have continual improvement. I've always said most of the time the biggest improvement on a football team is between their first game and their second game. A lot of that has to do with, how you're going to prepare and how much contact you give. I can tell you I questioned myself about the second quarter that I had not given our running backs enough full contact work when we had those two fumbles. And so I was gnashing my teeth there. I've always said that I usually can tell how our football team's going to be about in the middle of the first quarter, and I was exactly wrong on that. So that proved me wrong. But nonetheless, a gritty performance by a lot of our players, and particularly I thought Andrew Peasley, his grit was exceptional. He can play a little bit better, but I don't think his effort as far as his grittiness can be any better. We're fortunate to get through the game. We've got some bumps and bruises, but I think everybody who played in the game will be available this next week. And so a big win for our program. It was on national TV. And so it's a great start of the season, so we're excited about that. Concerning Portland State, I watched the tape, and I'm a little bit astounded by the lopsided score. When I watched Portland State went down their first drive, scored fairly easily, and it just wasn't like on a big play. Outstanding quarterback Sasha Ray is a guy who played well in that game, I thought. He was under quite a bit of duress, but certainly going to be somebody that we're going to have to contend with. They've got a big, strong defensive front, and we need to make improvements to come up with the next win. So at this time, questions. Yes.
Overall, how did you feel about the running game? I know the two fumbles, but is that an area of emphasis to get back on track here?
Yeah, I'm just not disappointed. I thought we'd be able to run the ball better. Some of our runs came about with the quarterback run, some with our rushing yardage, which is going to be part of our package, but our traditional tailback runs. Now, once again, I think as I looked at their defensive front and then, some of their players, we would normally get like a 12-yard gain. It turned into a 3-yard gain. This number 8 was all over the field. And so I think there's a little bit of a balance, Ryan, between the quality opponent we had and then our need to improve.
Greg, I know you have a veteran defensive front, but you have to be absolutely impressed that they only give up 2.8 yards per carry.
Mm-hmm. I thought that was a major part of the game. If you can make a team one-dimensional, which we were able to do, because Texas Tech, even though they're noted for being a tempo, fast-paced offense that takes the ball different places, they're a physical team that likes to run the football. And so, I thought our defensive tackles played well, our defensive ends played well, and so did our backers. And we tackled, by and large, I thought, much better than we did last year.
Greg, how's Harrison Whaley's progress coming?
He will return to practice this week. I do not think we'll have him for this game, though. We'll find out. But I do know he's going to practice today, so we're encouraged about that.
If you get into a situation when you're coming off a game like you are, and you're going to play a team that maybe doesn't have the national recognition of the one you just beat, that you have to work with them to stay focused on the fact that you still have to play this team?
Yeah, there's no doubt, Tracy. We met with the players this morning, and I addressed that. And the best thing I know always is you can control what you can control, and one of the things we can control is getting better and going out and playing and have better execution. Nonetheless, you have young people Sometimes they're going to read the press clippings. And I told them it's not far from the penthouse to the outhouse. And so you better be mindful of that. And many times, Tracy, I have found through the years that, just human nature, sometimes you're tested with trials you have, but sometimes you really get tested when things go well and everybody's patting you on the back. Then all of a sudden, the edge that you've had that was apparent on why I think one of the reasons why we beat Texas Tech, we've got to stay hungry like that. And that's my job, to make sure this football team is poised and on edge, ready to get better and have a chance to win.
Craig, it looked like Frank cleared things out on that last play of the game, and then after the game he said, they kind of need to, the offensive line needs to make sure Peasley doesn't take a beating like that. Just overall, your thoughts on the offensive line with the new pieces?
I know that, Andrew got hit a couple times. Now, some of it was when he was running. And so I think we took 2 sacks, and obviously he went 0. And Frank has a high bar for the offensive line. I thought they competed fairly well, though. They're guys, I do know they have a couple guys that the NFL people are looking at on their defensive front. And they were big and they played aggressive. And so overall I was pleased with how our offensive line did it. We got to clean up some of the jumps, but we didn't have a holding call. We had very few MAs. We had an MA on the last touchdown. We cut a guy loose right up the middle, and I thought Andrew made a great play. But we want to keep our quarterback healthy, and we have to watch how much exposure we give him, and we want to try to keep him upright.
Greg, you brought it up on Saturday night, and I think it got lost in all the stuff that was going on. But after rewatching the game, that 4th down call was huge. Was that a gut thing with you, or what made you?
Yeah, there's analytics. We have a big book, and we crunch all the numbers, and we pay gazillion dollars. And I went, I'm not exactly going to say what I said, but I said we're rolling with it, and it was probably in more colorful terms than that. I kept on talking to the officials, saying, okay, where's it going to be if it gets overturned? And, I was initially given information that was 4th and 1. And it wasn't 4th and 1. It was 4th and 2. But I thought our offensive line really did a great job, particularly inside, and then Sam ran hard. And that was there was a big, I think, turning point in the game. And certainly it was great to get the first down.
What a catch by Gilmore to get a foot down.
Yeah, there was no doubt about that. Yeah, and it was touch and go. I talked to the side judge, and she said that it was one of her toughest calls, and it got overturned. I mean, he got his foot down. It was great.
Greg, you were obviously high on John Michael Gilmore in spring and fall camp, and how nice was it? He led the team with 5 catches, had that touchdown.
Well, he played well, and he hadn't played much last year, and you saw how well Trayton Welsh had played. So when we have 2 guys like that, that poses problems for defenses when you can have 2 tight ends and you can use them in multiple places. So we're really pleased with both of those 2 guys, and the moment wasn't too big for John Mike or Trayton.
What is Sebastian Harsh at now that he's healthy and he's been waiting so long?
Yeah, he's been waiting long. He played really well, knocked down, I think, 1 ball, maybe 2. There was another short yardage play that he was really disruptive in. It was great to see him out there. He's walking a little bit with a limp, but he said he's going to be okay. Those defensive ends were going to be tested, and Sebastian rose to the challenge.
Did you say anything to Hoyland before he goes out for a career-long?
No, I stayed. No. Yeah, I was upset with Andrew. We fumbled the snap, and you start counting numbers there, and I think I don't know if Ryan brought it up or somebody. If we don't make that, that's going to be quite a bit of field position. So those are decisions that I'm constantly looking at and seeing where the ebb and flow of the game is at and where our yardage is going to be. Now, I did not anticipate losing yardage because I felt pretty confident I felt fairly confident where the line of scrimmage was, and we lost that yardage, those couple yards. I do think he probably could have made it from 60, though. He really struck it well.
Is this a whole new you, going for it on 4th?
No, that's not a whole new me. No, don't start putting me in that category. But you just start to look at that time, Tracy. I think we were down 17-3, I believe, at that time, and you start looking at number of possessions, and we're going to need a touchdown somehow. And it was, it was close enough on that run that we got a good push.
Greg, how do you kind of expect the workload to be divvied up with the running backs against Portland State?
Well, I think we really need to take a hard look at Sam Scott. He did some good things within the ball game. Certainly there's a body of work with the other two. Ball security comes into play. I just popped my head in the offensive room and had a pretty pointed discussion with our coaches about ball security, the number of carries. And when you put the ball on the ground, that puts us in a tough place. And so that's got to get cleaned up. The other two guys will play. And some of it's going to be who's got the hot hand, and then there's certain things that guys do better than others.
From what I understand, Portland State's offense tries to go with tempo, maybe a different scheme, but similar tempo to Texas Tech. Does that help that you've already faced that?
It helps simply because players have understood how fast they have to get ready, and I thought our guys did a remarkable job. And I talked about Coach Sauvel's plan and the preparation. And as soon as a player tackled somebody, he wasn't just kind of getting up and dusting himself off. He was running back to the middle of the field because we knew. And so we'll be challenged again with Portland State's tempo, but certainly working on it ahead of time for Texas Tech, and then we'll work on it this week. It's going to have a really big impact.
Greg, you said you were happy with your coaches after the game. Were you even more impressed after watching the film?
Yeah. There was just a lot that went into that game, and in some of the preparations, whether they be checks, audibles, pressures, our three-man front with different coverages that allowed us to do special things. And then, like I said, some of the complicated schemes that we do offensively really helped.
Have you contacted Oregon or vice versa with the crossovers here?
No, we really haven't. I don't know the coaches at Oregon. I know you probably do.
They're actually new since I left.
Yeah, okay, yeah. We haven't. And I also want to say this, is I think Coach McGuire is a great fit for Texas Tech. And he's a positive guy that believes in his football team. And they played hard, and they came up on the short end of the stick. But I think he's a heck of a head coach, and want to wish him well. And I think they'll play well against Oregon this week. I think they'll play well. They've got good players, and like I said once again, I think the world of him. He's a great fit, and so I have not talked to Oregon.